At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jack.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Focus on Liberia on the Marketplace. I am your co-host, Gabriel Carter. Today is Saturday, July 15. We have in the studio with us the former Minister of Finance, Mr. Boima Kamara. We are going to talk about his latest report that he's worked on that looked at the previous administration, budget report over the 12 years, and also looked at the current administration budget over the last 6 years. And we're going to dive into those findings, what they were able to get out of that report, but more importantly, get his perspective on the report. We're also going to be talking about the current recast of the budget, the current budget, what we make of it. And we're also going to talk about the depreciation in the currency. And I think if you've heard or you've been following the body of politics in Liberia, this is something that is trending. Our currency has depreciated significantly. We want to talk about that, the causes and the effects of that depreciation. It's a pleasure being here. Wherever you are, as we like to say, take your time, share with your audience, share with your followers, and take an hour and a half, grab a cup of water or beer or whatever you drink, and stay with us for the next hour and a half. As we always like to say, bring your questions, bring your opinion, perspective, most importantly, and let's have a good conversation. William, good to see you back, my man. It's been a while.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gabriel. I've been on a little bit of hiatus. My work schedule and a few things have kind of been all the way up in the air. But I'm kind of coming up to see a little bit of daylight now. So happy to be here. We'll be on the show this week. Yeah. Next week also, looking forward to being here, participating, and so forth. As we go along, you probably see me more and more. So looking forward to the conversation. A lot has been happening in Liberia this year. It's the political year. But also underlining that huge current with the political stuff, there's the economy. There are things that are going on budget-wise and so forth. And so today we want to have this conversation to make sure that Liberians and our viewers understand that, hey, we are political people, sure, but hey, the economy is important as well. And so today joining us, we have Boima Kamara, who we're going to be putting him to our task. We're going to be asking him some tough questions, like our guy Anthony always say. We're going to try to throw him some bitter ball, and we're going to see how he handles that. So Boima, right now you're on mute, so we're going to ask you to unmute before we get into this. Man, tell us a little bit about who you are real quick, but more importantly, give us a few things that you've been up to lately. You've been a frequent guy on some other shows, so the audience is maybe a little bit familiar with you. But share with us a little bio, and also what have you been up to, brother?
Thank you, Bernard, and thanks to Gabriel and Brother Ja. And I just want to greet all of our brethren in Radio Land. All of you who's watching this, I want to say thank God that we can be on this platform and giving us the opportunity just to share what we know. We don't assume to know it all. We come to this conversation just to share our perspective and also learn from you as well. And we'll be listening to what you will be asking, how much we can respond. We will do our best. But Boima Kamara happens to be a Liberian, born in Monrovia, grew up in Monrovia, went to school in Monrovia, even during our troubling years of civil crisis. My primary, secondary education, tertiary as well as they were all in Liberia. So I obtained my BSc from the University of Liberia in 2001, BSc summa cum, minor mathematics, economics major. And upon graduation, we were the few who were fortunate at the time to have Governor Salibi of the Central Bank, then governor, who in 2002 recruited on the basis of merit. Shortlisted 33 of us who graduated in ranks of summa cum magna and cum laude. And shortlisted went through interview, and that's how I began my professional sojourn at the Central Bank of Liberia as an analyst in 2002 March. Within 14 to 15 years span, I grew from ranks of analyst to economist, assistant director for research, planning and policy, director for research, and then deputy governor for economic policies within those 14 years of my stay at the Central Bank. And in 2016 May, the president appointed me as Minister of Finance, the last Minister of Finance under President Sirleaf for the period of 16 months that ended her administration in 2017. And following the end of the administration, I decided to take a break and then came back to school. I obtained my first master's degree from the University of Ghana, Legon in 2007, a Master of Philosophy in Economics.
17?
2007.
Okay.
Yeah, 2007. And then concentration in terms of areas, advanced econometric theory and practice, health economics, monetary economics, and international economics. So those are my concentration. And my second master was of recent in 2020. May of 2020, I obtained my second Master of Arts or Master of Science from the Johns Hopkins University with a concentration in financial economics, with emphasis in financial econometrics. So, so far, following completion of studies at Johns Hopkins, I work as an international consultant for the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, its regional office for West Africa in Yami, Niger, in 2020 up to 2021 December for 1 year. And after which I currently was fortunate again to receive a hire from the African Union, Africa Center for Disease Control health economics program as the health financing advisor, which role I currently occupy.
Yeah.
So that's Boima Kamara. I'm married. I'm blessed with 5 children.
Yeah.
And a beloved wife, Anthony Nadia Satus Kamara, my wife. She happens to be the strength, indeed, the helpmeet, as God will put it. For this guy, you see, keep moving on and on, doing what I think I'm called to do.
Yeah.
And especially for Liberia, in the face of all of my duties outside of Liberia, I still remain engaged in Liberia. I've been part of several think tank groups, the Partnership for Sustainable Development for Liberia. I've also formed part of another group of think tank under the guidance of Madam Sarah Besler Yanti. We've been writing some policy papers on issues of fiscal, on issues of monetary affairs, and submitting them to the government as our way of giving back. So even though outside, yet still remain engaged in the issues that affect our nation. And we just want to use this as an occasion to just call on all of us who are in the diaspora. Liberia is all we have. Let's put aside our individual differences. Our common denominator is Liberia. And our circumstances will have us put that in union strong, success is sure. Let's meet the foe with valor unpretending. God being our help, we will overall prevail.
Perfect. All right. William, you want to take this away?
Yeah, thanks, Boima. Definitely, we can see that you've been in this thing for, I guess, if anybody will be tracking you, would say at least over the past 12 to 15 years. So you're quite intimately aware of what's going on. So tell us about this budget. We know that this year, it's a very important year, political campaign and all of that. We're not gonna sit here and be ignorant about some of those influences in the budget. But, tell us a little bit about the Liberian budget, what it is, and as we see it right now, just for the face value.
Okay. So let me share that. You want me to share that report? Yeah, I think you're muted.
Yeah, Boima, we can definitely share the report. Gabriel, please share the report, and then we'll let him know to online.
Okay, so this
we have this and gentlemen. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. This is
and I would just ask you in that. Okay.
Go ahead, Boima. Let me.
You may want to also pull up the approved 2023 fiscal budget. There's something I want to show in that before I go to the recast budget.
Right.
But in the process of just doing that, I would just want to just share the evidence of the research we just conducted.
Yeah.
The national budget, 12 years budget performance under the previous administration under Madam Salif, and the 6 years budget performance under President Weah. What picture we find or what picture we see.
Okay.
So let me just wait for you guys to just.
This one?
Yes, this one. Yeah, that one.
Can you see it?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, perfectly. So
Bernard and all of our brethren in Radio Land watching this on this social media platform, wherever you are watching, we took a deep dive just to see as a nation how well have we been spending. And this is the picture. For 12 years under President Sirleaf, from 2006, upon assuming the office of the presidency, up to when her administration ended in December 2017, 12 years, the national budget in terms of revenue generation by us as a country through our economic activities, through tax collection, the total that the research found is 4.8 billion United States dollar. Of the 4.8 billion United States dollar, recurring expenditure, which includes compensation that is on salaries, goods and services, gasoline allowances, people traveling, domestic per diem. You can imagine what we call transfer and subsidies. They all took 4.3 billion out of this estimated 4.8 billion, leaving, and that represented 90.4% as a nation in 12 years, generating 4.8 billion, but we ate through what we call consumption, 90.4% of that amount, and left only 456.95 million. That is constituting 9.7%, which is how much we say we gave to education, health, agriculture, youth, women empowerment, TVET. So on those capital-related expenditure as a nation in 12 years, we only could have allowed for 9.7%, under 10%.
So
what does the picture show?
So let me ask you, Boima. So are you saying that it was a very labor-intensive budget for the first 12 years? It was mostly resources going to labor?
Meaning resources going to things that will not bring you growth and development. That means you are spending your way into poverty unknown to yourself by not investing in critical economic growth sectors that have the ability to creating jobs for your people. That's why if you look at our Human Development Index, Liberia ranks 178 out of 191 countries in the world, meaning we are at the bottom tier of nations that are considered the poorest in the world because of this human development factor. How many of your people have access to good care in terms of health care, access to quality education, access to water and sanitation? So those are all the Human Development indices that you look at that ranks a nation as whether you are performing better or not, when many of your people are stay below the poverty line as defined by the United Nations. So the same picture holds true in terms of how we spend 6 years under the WEA administration.
Well, before we get to that, can you just share maybe 3 or 4 high level reasons as far as what were some of the restraints or challenges as far as why, even though they knew that, what it felt as if our hands were tied, or it was just something that was
I don't think as a nation we've been keenly watching how we have been spending, because this research is the first of its kind, where you take a stock as to how we have been spending as a nation. So we've been doing it, but unknown to ourselves. This is the picture. If you even ask President Sirleaf or President Weah, do you know that of the amount you've generated for this economy through revenue collection that we've been eating, then investing in ourselves? They would tell you, say, no, I didn't get that picture. And this is the breakdown of the 4.8 billion in terms of picture. The legislature accounted for, under 12 years under President Sirleaf, 309.6 million went to the legislature in the form of salaries, goods and services, transfer and grants. So salary took 159 million, almost 160 million. Total legislature, that means 103 individual, 73 in the House of Reps, Senate, 30. They taken a salary of almost 160 million within the period of 12 years. On goods and services, 133.3 million. Transfer and grants, where you say for scholarship, people put money somewhere and say for a constituency visit, they put money in a budget and they say we're giving scholarship to people. The legislature should not be in this, but this is how we've been spending our money.
Yeah.
And then capital investment, meaning auto repair works at the legislature, issues of electricity and generator took 11.9 million. Not even on core investment that can generate growth. In terms of the breakdown regarding policy area and department, the Office of the Pro Tem took 10 million, got 10 million. The House of Senate, 90 million. The Office of the Speaker, 8.4 million. The Office of the Deputy Speaker, 6.3 million. The House of Rep, 194 million. The Office of the Vice President, over the same 12 years. So what I would do, Bernard, let me just summarize this, and then the question can follow, because I want to complete the story.
Yeah.
The office of the vice president for 12 years accounted for 17.42 million. Compensation took 6.72 million. Goods and services, 9.3 million. And then what we call non-financial assets or fixed asset took 1.3 million. See the picture for health. Over the 12-year period, health accounted for 400 million, but of the 400 million, 348 of that amount went on salaries again, on goods and services, transfer and subsidies. Only 51 million in terms of what we call capital expenditure went to health. And even if you should look at this 51.7 million, on what was it spent? Was it spent on GFK getting related healthcare related equipment, MRI? You talk about cardiologist machine. You talk about eye related machine. Do we see it reflected in your visit to GFK, your visit to Jackson F. Doe Hospital in Nimba, your visit to Phoebe Hospital? Do we see a change regarding whether money actually went to these entities? The answer is you clearly see that allocation to a sector does not necessarily translate into how spending takes place within the sector on the purpose of creating the necessary investment on things that will improve health outcome.
Got it.
The same picture holds true for Ministry of Education. 496 million went to education, but again, on what? Largely on paying salaries, goods and services transfer took 483.7 million. Capital expenditure only took 12.5 million, meaning in that 12-year period, you are talking about on education. If you just disaggregate it on average, say maybe at least 1 million a year went to education. But on capital project, what project did they do? The outcome that we see in the educational outcome in terms of the quality of graduates coming out of school, the secondary school, the primary schools, you go to some places in the rural part of Liberia, you'll be sad to see, but the state of those classes, no benches, nothing. The teachers, some of them are not even paid on time. Look at agriculture. In 12 years, it took only 61.7 million. Again, almost all went on paying people's salaries. What this picture shows, the government is overburdened by being the major employer of its citizens and not the private sector. This has to change. To the extent, even agriculture on capital expenditure, it took only 10 million in 12 years.
Right.
Yeah.
That means on less than 1 million a year. And even if you ask the agriculture folks, on what did you spend? Because the time has come when allocation goes to the sector, we have to follow through to see spending within the sector and on what that will give us the necessary outcome in terms of productivity. Did we grow rice? That we can classify Liberia as being self-sufficient in food? Obviously, no. You can see we still importing rice in our nation. Agriculture production is still at a low, when in fact, we have almost everything there is in terms of the environment that can make Liberia self-sufficient in food production. But yet, how much we allocate to the sector is so meager. See the picture of the person we had 6 years. You ask questions, but I just want to complete this.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Go ahead.
Please, just let me complete this. On a president, we are almost the same picture obtained. So it's not just, we're not looking at 12 years versus 6 years. But what you're looking at here is the overall picture as to how we spend. Again, 3.5 billion was generated for this administration under President Weah in almost 6 years, of which 3.1 billion is again on recurring expenditure, meaning on salary, consumption related to goods and services. You're paying per diem, you're paying for people travel, constituency visit. So salary almost taking almost everything. Only 401 million, that is around 11%, let's say averaging 10% again for both administrations. Again, the legislature takes 307.4 million. If you see the breakdown, I will look at area department. The office of the pro tem takes almost 10.6 million, almost the same as in 12 years under President Salif. House of Senate takes 100 million. 9.5 million went to the office of the speaker. 7.3 million onto the deputy speaker. And 179.5 million to the House. And what is important to see on this fact sheet is how much our MPs make compared with the sub-region. A senator in Liberia makes nothing less than 12,000 United States dollars a month. Members of the House of Reps, nothing less than $9,000 a month. Compared with Nigeria, Africa's largest economy and sixth largest producer of oil, MPs make somewhere around 15,000, which is almost the same what our senator making. You can compare the economy of Nigeria and that of Liberia, for which MPs in Liberia make such an amount. In Ghana, it's just around $3,000. Sierra Leone, just around 1,000, which is equivalent to around 20.5 million leon. Cote d'Ivoire, now more than 5,000. Just see our neighbors, how much they may compare with Liberia. Something has to change.
Okay.
And
All right.
just looking at health again, in terms of how much went to health, 329 million under the 6 years reign, of which again 292 million is on paying salaries, goods and services, again consumption. Only 37 million went on capital expenditure. But again, look at the health outcomes. Look at education, 457 million. Again, salaries, goods and services, transfer and subsidy taking 446, almost 98%. Only 2%, 2 to 3%, that is 11.6 million was left for education capital expenditure. And one thing I should pick up on our health. If you look at the healthcare expenditure on capital expenditure as a share of the national budget, is 0.01 for both administrations. Liberia is part of the signatory to the African Union when it has to do with allocation through the national budget by each member country should at least be growing to around 15% over the next 5 to 10 years. Liberia in 18 years, we have now gone beyond even 0.5%, not to talk about 1%. It has to change.
Okay.
And look at agriculture. Almost 6 years under President Weah is 26.3 million. Wow. And then 25.3 million is again on salaries. Only 1 million in 6 years, almost 6 years, went for capital expenditure in agriculture. Studies have shown this is the place. If we concentrate well and put money intentionally, the growth potential of jobs that can be created is nothing less than 500,000 jobs within 2 to 5 years. You can imagine how much that would mean for us as a nation in terms of employment.
I have
Yeah,
two
yeah.
questions.
Yes, please.
And I think this is I'm glad that you are making this awareness and going on the various platforms to talk about this. And I always like to say, when it comes to politics, we Liberians we're engaged, we're very hands-on. We will come and curse you out, but when it comes to numbers, like numbers and these things that are very important, we don't pay attention to them. So I'm glad you're going on these various platforms to talk about these things. There's two questions that I have. One, and I believe we have some smart Liberians, right? In what I was in the alien administration and currently the We Are administration. Are we trying to say that over the 12 years plus the 6
60.
now, which is 18 years, there was not a single person in both administration that could figure out this thing like, man, listen, I think the way we're doing our budget is wrong. And if we continue down this way, we were going to be like this, like from a developmental standpoint for the next 776 years. You mean there was not one person that could have review this thing and make awareness about it up until now?
I would
That's
say,
my first question.
yeah,
The
okay.
second question is maybe in answering that, can look at that as well. Is if that is the case, and we've just realized is which you and your team were able to do this research, what needs to change in order to make the budget development focus, in order for it to be people centric, in order for it to be, hey, this I can't be paying you 15,000 anymore every month and you're not doing anything. What needs to change about the budget? But more importantly, yeah, so those are my two questions.
Thanks, Gabriel. William, you want me to take yours too?
Oh, no. Go ahead. You have Gabriel. That's a good question. I'm sure we're gonna touch on mine by the conversation. Go ahead.
So what we have done for this fact sheet, we created an analysis of it. Can I send it? So probably it's just to project one or two areas. It's a 2-pager. It's not a long document. So if I can get,
what is it called? Is that the
it's called the social contract.
Okay.
The social contract fact sheet explained. I don't think I sent it to you guys. No, I think I sent it to Dennis.
You sent it to Dennis, and I think I have it.
Yeah, the social contract fact sheet explained.
Right.
But while you look for it, in response, in passing in 12 years, it was discussed to some extent.
Right.
Because at a time around 2011, 2012, there was this transition in terms of the agenda for transformation. How can Liberia get to the point of becoming a middle income country?
Right.
To the extent that the growth of the economy, it was projected to become a middle income country, which should sustain an average real GDP growth of 10% within 3 to 5 consecutive years. And we're nearing that between 2010, 11, 12 into 2013 before Ebola hit in 2014. So the conversation then was to increase capital expenditure as a share of the budget to at least around 30 to 40%. So in passing, we were having this conversation, but in terms of having a look of the budget in this manner and form, it is only now we are saying it. So probably this sort of research will have informed the urgency associated with the decision then to increase capital expenditure as a share of the budget to at least around 30 to 40%. Now we see what the picture is, and then it makes it compelling now. In response to your second question, what has to be done? The national budget now has to be people-centered. And how can it be people-centered? We are now leading what we call the social contract movement.
Okay, let me share that. I have that right now.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so if you can just go down to the picture, they are okay, good.
Which
so
one?
You can go to the first one. Yeah, that first one.
Okay.
Yeah, so you see those 3 legs in terms of the orange.
Yeah.
Okay, it's saying something profound.
Yeah.
That of our total, the first big line that says the national budget.
Yeah.
That is the 4.8 billion.
Right.
And you see the 4.8 billion recurring expenditure almost took out all
of it.
Yeah. You see capital expenditure is just that small little bus down there, the orange guy, the tear is. Now you see the same picture under we are administration. National budget is 3.5 billion. Almost everything is taken out by recurring expenditure. Capital expenditure is like flat. So in both periods, the picture shows they are all flat, capital expenditure. And if you come down and just look at the breakdown on what took almost all this money. So you see goods and services, transfer subsidies, and salaries, again, of the total under the legislature. Everything is on, again, recurring expenditure. Capital expenditure is also flat. The office of the vice president, if you see the breakdown, again, those first 3, the first box is a little tall in terms of the total budget received of 17 point something million. Again, almost all went on salaries, goods, and services. The capital expenditure is the flat. You can see it. So it's like a blue mat. It's on the ground.
Yeah.
You see it. If you look at Ministry of Health again, everything that went to health is on recurring expenditure, on salaries, goods, and services. Capital expenditure is so small. You see the box. You look at health, education, the same thing. Capital expenditure again is very flat. Ministry of Agriculture is like the stepchild. You don't hardly get anything, but again, almost everything is on goods and services and payment of salaries. Again, capital expenditure is flat. The picture for we are 6 years is the same thing. So almost everything we're doing is on just capital expenditure. So when you ask the question, so this is the pie, 12 years under President Sally, all of these bigger areas, they are all nothing but the recurring expenditure on goods and services in all of the sectors. All right. These small areas, they represent the share of the pie on capital expenditure. The same picture holds true again for 5 to 6 years under President. We are almost 97%. We add 25, 39, 26. All of these smaller areas of the pie is practically flat. And this is the comparison of the MP salaries. You see, Nigeria, Senator in Liberia almost more than halfway out of Nigeria, and greater than all the other sub-regional countries in terms of Sierra Leone, Ghana, and Cote d'Ivoire. So the social contract movement now that we are driving is placing a demand on all of our national leaders, elected officials. So we have come up and we are recommending that every citizen now, in your hand will be these copies of the fact sheet, this breakdown in terms of the graphical representation. It will be in every, and that's our intent, that throughout the 15 counties, the social contract movement, now we have established ourselves, we have a platform, and now we are now going to have regional coordinators to just freely distribute. Nobody has given us a dime for this, Gabriel, but we have started, and it has just won overwhelming support. In the last 1 week, upon launching the platform, we got 700 plus participants enrolled.
Boima, let's do this right now. Where is this doc? How do people Liberians are asking, how do they access this? Is there a website?
So it's available. It's available through our social media WhatsApp platform. We have posted it there, and all of the members who are in various communities, various platforms, you will take it from there and then distribute to your people. So I will send it to you guys. I will send it to you, Gabriel. I will send it to your WhatsApp. I will send it to you, Bernard. After this show, I don't have you guys WhatsApp, so I will send it to you. And then I will ask you if you want to be enlisted in the social contract movement platform. We'll enlist you there. It's apolitical. It's highly professional. It's highly driven by evidence-based research. Anybody who comes in there and wants to do politics, will take you out. And we just encourage all well-meaning Liberians to join, and then we can enroll you. And there we will publish and post all of these data and information, and you take it from there and distribute it to your people in your various communities. So it's free of charge.
Thank you. We will be connecting with Dennis Jah and look to see what he decides. And if we move forward with that, we'll be making that available on our website. FOL has a website, and we can make it available for download. Thank you. Okay, back to you, Gabriel.
Yeah. So I think we should move on to the next topic on there, which is the recast budget.
Yes. Thank you.
Before we do, I have a comment for I think this is probably one question on here by maybe Morris Kroma. He said
he was one of my staff.
Okay. All right. He said, Minister Kamara, did the trend we've seen in many post-conflict countries where the society is broken, high urbanization and unemployment, it seems the government becomes a means through which redistribution is done. How would you have recommended a downward shift of the government while at the same time keeping the nation peaceful? That's a mouthful.
I will say to you, Morris, you were within the planning section of the ministry, and certainly the way to do it, government, the first thing we want to just make known, the government being overburdened as the largest employer in the country has to change. The government must now begin to create the condition for the private sector. For example, Gabriel, so that question, we will say put a freeze on new hire in the public sector. The total strength of the employment in the public sector, I think, is around 60 to 70,000 plus present that the government has to deal with. So you want to first put a freeze on that. Don't bring in any new person. Begin now to look in the budget. That's what the social contract now is calling for. We have 9 counts. So in addition to the fact sheet and this analysis, we also have the real contract that must be between the elected candidates or those potential candidates vying for offices of president, vice president, and us, the citizens. And in that contract, we have 9 counts. Your commitment to the rule of law in terms of good governance, the tenets of democracy, allowing people to have freedom of expression, freedom of association. Nobody's going to come after you when you're doing government job. You will not be killed in the discharge of your duty. All of those forms of extrajudicial killing, rampant corruption, zero tolerance, issues of human trafficking, zero tolerance, issues of drug trafficking and substance abuse, especially for our brothers and sisters who society is now labeling as Zogos and Zogis. They are just underprivileged people who need help. Then we say you must now allow the budget to begin to cater to those people. And to the extent salaries, we are advancing recommendations for salaries that the president makes nothing more than 8,000, the vice president makes nothing more than 6,000. The Senate, the legislature, in terms of its salaries, and that of the Supreme Court justices, their salary should not be more than that of the vice president. When you do that, there will be significant savings. And then we advocate that from year 1 to year 2, year 3, capital expenditure as a share of the budget in the 5th year of any given president, let it be at least 50%. Gabriel and Bernard, you agree with me. Just look at now what the data shows. 50% of 4.8 billion, that's around 2 billion, 2.4 billion. You can imagine if we already take 2.4 billion as a nation and we did it well for agriculture, health. Do we have to go to IMF and even ask the question, can you give us 30 million or 50 million? Do we have to even borrow? So these are some hard questions that we now have to sit around the table and let the budget begin now to tell a different story, that the Liberian people, the citizens, should be at the center of the budget. And that takes me now to the recast budget, if you should permit me. Gabriel, you are muted.
Yeah, I said no. Thank you. I think that is a great response to that that question as well. I absolutely agree with you on that. The answer you give. I think is, just because you're poor country just coming out of a war, that doesn't mean you don't make the hard choices. You have to make the hard choices for the long term.
That's correct.
Right. So
especially in difficult times, let everybody make the sacrifice. If you're ready to represent the people, then legislature, it should not be difficult for you to take cuts in your salary. Mr. President, the same thing. So everybody make the sacrifices in difficult times. When the economy starts to improve, then you can adjust accordingly as may be deemed fit.
Right. Thank you. So without further ado, I think we should jump. I don't have the recast budget.
It's on the Ministry of Finance website. So if you can just go to MFDP website, you will see it under the Department of the Budget. Just look for publication, and then you'll see the Department of the Budget. And once you click on that, then you should have access to it.
Okay, let's see here. Let me jump on there right now. I can bring this up. Publication, report, budget planning. I see national budget. Okay. Yep, recast budget. Let me download this very
That's
quick.
correct.
Yeah. What can we do? Save this. Recast budget. Perfect. No, I want it on the desktop. All right, now let me see if I can share this right now. Recast budget. Here we go. Voila. Okay. That was fast. Alrighty. So here we go. Let me see if I can. I don't know how many pages are these. This is. I hope you can see this. How many pages are these? Okay. All right. So this is the abbreviated recast budget.
It's 16.
Here.
It's 16 pages. It's just 16
Yeah.
pages. It's
Okay.
not
So
long.
it's not. It's not
That's
too
their
long.
breach.
Okay.
Yeah, that's their
Okay.
breach.
All right. So yeah, you can. I don't know. You can take. This is the first page if you want to take
Yes.
this
So
away.
so just to say, the originally approved budget was around 782.9 million.
Yep.
And is the recast puts it around 759, and the reason for that is indicated in terms of a reduction in trade volume. The government has indicated that there is a reduction, anticipated reduction in trade volume. Not only anticipated, but they have, for the first 6 months of the year, in terms of the budget performance, they've
Right.
experienced reduction in trade volumes. I mean, trade between Liberia and the rest of the world, the number of containers coming to Liberia, the volume of trade taking place in terms of our export versus importation. So surcharge on petroleum import, they say expire. But in my mind, that is something within the domain of government institutions. So negotiation between, or cooperation or coordination between the executive and the legislature, probably 3 to 4 months, because you know the date as to when it will expire, and you don't wait for it to expire before you take action. So I think that's something that should have been worked on. Reduction in tariff on excise, weakened external demand. Again, the entire global international market is we all know what is happening in terms of the global economy coming out of COVID-19, supply chain disruption, issue about Russia and Ukraine impacting on the prices of food commodity. Why? Because Ukraine happens to be the country that feeds us in terms of maize, grains. You can imagine.
Yep.
So with that in mind, the budget is recast, and the difference in terms of the reduction is by 23.5 million. The breakdown in terms of where this anticipated 759.4 is just nothing but projection as to what will happen. It does not even mean they will realize this. Okay, but the breakdown in terms of where all of these will be going, again, compensation is going to take 296.5 million. Goods and services taking 107 million. Subsidies, grants close to around 87 million. Social benefit another 16 million. You can imagine, for non-financial asset, again, for capital expenditure, it's only level 5.1 million. You see, of 759 projected revenue, the allocation to capital related expenditure is just around 5.1 million.
So Boima, we have a situation where let's talk. Does this budget, I'm assuming that it includes funding from the international?
No, this is exclusively domestic revenue.
Like there, right? Domestic revenue. Okay.
It's domestic revenue mobilization.
Right. So
this is on budget. This is on budget.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we had a very important signing that happened this week. Which was the 300 million from the World Bank to help with the course, hydro, right?
No, there's a road, but that story.
Sorry. Well, one was a road, but the other one too was we have a hydro one as well.
Yeah. I didn't hear about the hydro one, but I know the 430 million was for roads.
For African Development Bank.
There's 430 million.
That story regarding the 400 plus million regarding between the government and African Development Bank, we need to fact check it.
Right.
Okay, no problem.
It has to be fact checked. All right.
Now the one with the IMF is the $300 million for the hydro. That is
World Bank. So for those, that's what we want to see. If you're taking loan, that will help improve the infrastructure in terms of electricity supply, that will increase access of our people, of all of us, to electricity, then that's fine. All right. And that's what we want to encourage, because every nation, including America, the great nation, the Industrial Revolution was the basis that they acquired debt, but they put the money into good projects that got high economic returns. And that's
Right.
if you just go back in 2020, I wrote an article on the debt situation, and that article was just to highlight that government, if you are acquiring debt, so that's part of the profiling of the fact sheet. It shows the debt stock from 2006 to 2017, when the total debt stock was around 5 billion. Madam Sirleaf administration brought it down to around 1.1 billion when her administration ended.
Right.
But as we speak, the debt stock has increased from 1.1 million to 2.3 billion. 1.1 billion to 2.3 billion, an increase of over 1.2 billion. The question is, if that has happened in 6 years under President Weah, what do we show for it? So we ask the question for President Sirleaf administration, what do you show? Yes, you managed to bring it down from 5 billion down to around 1.1 billion. Can you show us some things? So the administration will say, yes, you can see the road from Monrovia to Nima. That's a significant milestone that was not there in 2006. You can see the road from Monrovia to Picana. You can see some neighborhood road, even the road that was just completed under Weah administration, thanks to the Weah administration for completing the Japanese highway that is from Freeport to Painesville. That's what we want. Government is continuing with it. Right. But if debt has increased by over 1.2 billion, the question is, what can the Weah administration show? By now, if you can show me real tangible miles of road that has been covered. We thank God for the neighborhood roads around in Monrovia, but let's look at the rural part of the country. People cannot even travel now from Monrovia to Harper easily, where people got to go through Cote d'Ivoire before you can enter Harper. To even move.
Well, it is very consistent. Well, it is very consistent, we saw, right? So I think at the very beginning, you spoke about how challenged we are with moving away from a budget that is so labor intensive to something that's more capital, right? So we can invest
a consumption-based budget that does not allow you to spend on critical project infrastructure like roads, health, education. William, we are eating our way into this.
We continue to see that we are in this budget recast. It seems
the same story.
It seems we're going deeper. So instead of having just that 9%, maybe making it bigger, now it looks like it's more like 5% or even less.
You can see it that way. However, the bigger picture, if you look at the breakdown of the 759.4, it's actually around 16%, because capital expenditure takes 146.9%. So that's something I commented on, and I said, thanks to the Minister of Finance and the folks. Now we have to ensure that this 146 million actually be spent on healthcare.
Right.
In terms of healthcare, it should be spent on education in terms of the core area of education. Are you sending people to school? Are you creating maybe a conducive environment in terms of library that is highly IT related? You have some computer for the children to use. So those sort of infrastructure.
Could this be relative though, if we consider inflation? And in addition to the increase in this budget, could it be where we can look at this and still make the argument to say that, hey, we haven't really moved that needle?
We haven't moved it at all. It has not moved at all. And to the extent, what this bridge budget is showing us, I want Gabriel, if you can go to the approved budget before this recast.
So you want the
there is a reason, because we are advocating to get the detail of this recast, which has not yet been published by the Ministry of Finance.
So you want the approved budget. Okay,
the approved budget for 2023. And William, you will see the reason why we are asking to see the breakdown. So the numbers we have just talked about, they are just the aggregated number. We don't have the details in terms of what feed into each line. And there's a reason why I want to highlight there's a need that the Ministry of Finance should kindly publish as quickly as they can the detail of the recast budget. You have given us the whole. The parts that fit into that whole should be no-brainer to publish.
Got it. Okay. That's good.
All right, just give me 1 minute here.
While Gabriel looks at that, to bring that up, I just wanted to quickly show this article that came out 2 days ago.
Correct.
Right. So now the gentleman that we're looking at, or that we see, everyone globally has been said that he's a no-nonsense guy, and also he wants to work, and he has a good contextual knowledge from the private sector about things being practical and where it makes sense, because he came from the private sector. And so having something like this with Liberia to increase the production or the availability of electricity, whether it's for use in Liberia or to be sent in the grids, right? But this is one of those, in terms of a capital project, that maybe we are referring to. Now, of course, we know the source. There are criterias, and there's
condition precedents.
That was in the details, right? But if this was something that Liberia, from the capital perspective, could put more money in, then we could maybe, I don't know how you say it, maybe we could be more of a driver and control the resources.
If you ask me on do we need to improve on the electricity infrastructure, especially the City Mancoffey Dam? Yes, we need to improve on it. Mm-hmm. But if you ask me the question, in hindsight, if our economy can generate in 6 years 3.5 billion, and we spend almost 90%, isn't it possible that we could do it ourselves if actually we're doing priority setting of the national budget?
Sure, I think so. I mean, just looking at it, once you get over that whole hurdle, right? Someone, now that you're presenting this, someone may be looking at it and say, well, Mr. Kamara, during President Sirleaf's time, you had 12 years, right? Once you get over that hurdle of you remove that question, then we can kind of look at this and say, hey, we are moving forward. We still have that opportunity. It seems every year we have that opportunity, but we're not.
And there were indeed opportunities, because if you should just look back, mm-hmm. the Sirleaf administration started with a budget of 80 million.
Yes.
So if you see that this administration was able to generate a budget size of 3.5 billion, almost close to 4.8 billion, is because the heavy lifting, credit to President Sirleaf. We just want to make that point. Because if you had to grow a budget of under 100 million, which was 80 million in 2006, you can imagine the dam was completely destroyed. No access to electricity. Everything was, you had to purchase private sector driven in terms of people buying generator. The road infrastructure was completely damaged, beginning with Monrovia and its environs, not to talk about outside Monrovia.
Right.
So to have grown the budget from 80 to over 500 million in 12 years, it took a lot of work. So it's like you have built that foundation and turned it over to President Weah. So that's why they inherited a budget size of over 500 million, not 80 million. So it's good so that before you talk about doing comparison, that's why I don't talk much about doing comparison, because it would not be fair to do. Because what we want to do is that we want to say government is continuity, just build the building block out, so that the next administration comes, adds on it, so that we can grow a budget of not less than 1 billion. And that should not be a problem. Why is it that in 18 years, Williams and Gabriel, Liberia, we still talking about around 700, 800 million budget size? Even the 800 is not realistic. We have to now recast it down.
I mean, I make 800 million myself in 6 months. I make 800 million.
And the reason why I'm saying this, if you compare Liberia,
everybody's gonna come knocking on my door.
But if you compare Liberia with Rwanda, similar country experience came out of war.
Yeah.
In 2006, Rwanda has grown her budget to over 8 billion a year.
Yeah.
When we stay struggling,
definitely. So
under 1 billion,
yeah.
We need to wake up in Liberia.
Yeah, I do have it. Let me share that right now.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So Gabriel, I'll ask you to just go to page 6 under the Office of the Pro Tem in this budget. Page 6.
Maybe further.
Yes, continue going. These are all the Roman numerals.
Okay.
Yeah. Keep going. Keep going. Until you see page 6. Okay. Is that page 6?
Yeah. The National Legislature
and the Office of the Pro Tem.
Okay. Office of the.
So you see.
Let me see.
So National Legislature, you will come down on that page 6. You will see National Legislature. You will see object expenditure. You will see grants.
Okay.
This, if you
Office.
Just go slightly on page 5 above, you will see Office of the Pro Tempore.
Okay.
You will see 0100. That's under the Office of the Pro Tem. Object expenditure, and there you will see 0100, Office of the Pro Tem. Rest slightly when you go back to page 5, the bottom part of page 5.
Okay, so the bottom of page 5, object of expenditure.
Correct.
Okay.
0100.
Office of the Pro Tem. Okay.
Okay, so we're going down slowly, and then you go to page 6. It continues. That's the Office of the Pro Tem. You'll see grant 26 line, the line that says 26 grants.
Okay, so we'll go on page 5. It says 6.
6, and you go down, you'll see 26, the lines that says grants. The upper part of page 6 under objective expenditure.
Okay, grants.
26, it's a line that says 26.
Yep, grants. I see grants. Yep.
And you see under it says legislative committee hearing.
Yep.
Fiscal year 2023, the line is 1.14 million United States dollars.
Yeah.
It did not exist in fiscal year 2022. It did not exist in fiscal year actual in 2021.
So what is that for then?
Now, you see, Gabriel, legislative committee hearing, when you invite ministries and agencies to appear before you, the people who are appearing, they are already on salaries.
So why
you at the legislature? Yeah, you already receiving salary at the legislature as senators, lawmakers. Why 1.14 million United States dollars for legislative committee hearing, which did not exist in the previous 2 years?
Are they planning to pay the broadcasters and the media, like Focus on Liberia, to come in there and sit there with the camera?
That's, you can ask that question. So you see, William, if we go in this budget, there will be several things that will speak to how we've been spending our way away from the people instead of coal. So if you can just take just in 1 year, 1.14 million, but agriculture sector in almost 6 years is just around 1 million.
So, and this thing, maybe this begs the question. Don't we have a Senate Finance Committee that?
No, you have the budget. You have the Committee on Ways, Means, Finance, and Budget, and people sitting there. How could this be that nobody saw this? It has been approved.
Like nobody reviews this thing and question it and pushes back on them. Like,
and that's why I call in on the other talk show on Spoon TV. I say, when these budgets are presented before you people, why don't you have an open budget hearing and call the experts? Call some of us. We don't want money. Just ask us, please look at this budget and advise. But they don't do it. Nobody has ever reached out to me. Nobody has ever, I haven't heard about calling former ministers of finance who once served the country, and we are around. Why should this be the case? Then,
But
in the same, and the reason why now we are asking to get the detail of the recast is to see whether this amount is still there. Is to see whether they brought this amount. If you are now saying that the economy is challenged, government is finding difficulty in generating revenue, I want to see the detail.
Right.
Whether you brought this same 1.1 million, 1.14 million, and have it on the for legislative committee hearing. Compare with MCC, the Monrovia City Corporation. Go on the ERBC website and see the pile of dirt. Picture of a heap of dirt almost on the road, living in the community in Painesville Red Light. So MCC, and the Painesville City Corporation, they need some money. If you can just take 200,000 or 300,000 from this amount and just give it to MCC for Monrovia to clean Broad Street, go and see our Broad Street. See Monrovia City, it's dirty. Look at the University of Liberia campus. You're giving one group of people who already been paid. What legislative committee hearing should be taking 1.4 million, 1.14 million, and then MCC is taking in this recast only 5.6 million. Is it sufficient to do the heavy lifting to keep Monrovia clean? Get the mayor of the city that amount, increase his allocation, increase the allocation to health, especially on call. So you go to JFK now, do we have MRI equipment, or people got to go to Ghana, or even the private clinic now they call Jomani in at EW Junction, where people out of pocket cost it is only those who can really afford that can go to Jomani, or say they'll go outside of Liberia to Ghana or other places for healthcare. We just have to keep our eyes on this, and I will call all of you guys in the media to please let us begin now to look at these published documents. The more we look at them, you will find things that the people are doing that we don't. So they are hiding all of these acts in our very eye because we don't read the public, especially the Liberian public. We don't read. So a lot of things going on that we can highlight if only we were reading and following through. And this is just a classic case. And that's why I'm calling on the Ministry of Finance to please, as soon as you can, please just publish the detail of this recast budget. We want to see what's there to advise. Like I'm advising now, MCC needs more allocation to help clean our cities. So it's one thing we advocate for MCC, PCC, health. When the money goes there, then we'll now follow through on those sectors, on those ministers, and make sure if you got 5 million on what did you spend, it should not be on salaries. So our advocacy now is that capital expenditure should command a significant attention going forward. This is just a classic case, an example. So you can imagine what we do not know in the recast budget. So their breach is just nothing but the aggregated numbers, but we don't know what's beneath it in terms of the details. And we want to see the details just to advise and recommend.
Okay.
Yeah.
William, you have any follow-up questions? Let me see if we have any comments in there. Then we move on to the
exchange rate.
The exchange rate right now, which is, putting holes in people's pocket in our country. Let me see here. What's up? What's going on? All right, so let me see here. This is Samponic. Is that how you say it? Hopefully, I apologize if I pronounce your name wrong. He said this is unfair. He said this is unfair part I don't like about this guy. This is an unfair part I don't like about this guy. Sorry that he referred to you as just this guy.
Yeah,
he tries to shield Madam Ellen. He's trying to shield Madam Ellen. Please indicate that Liberia debt was waived to $0 in 2011. I think he wanted you to point that out.
Okay. Let me just give a little history. Our debt position in 2006, when she took over, was around 5 billion. Liberia agreed to the IMF World Bank on what we call the HIPIC initiative. That is highly indebted poor country.
Right.
HIPIC initiative, that we should lend ourselves to all of the good governance practices. There were conditions precedents that Liberia had to commit to and work through, improve governance, improve allocation in the budget, strengthen the anti-graft institution. So all of those culminated in 2010 June, when Liberia reached HIPIC completion, when almost 4 billion plus of our debt was waived. And our debt came to around under 700,000.
700
and so
million.
between 2010 and 2017. So if you look at the fact sheet,
Right.
you will see in 2006, the total public debt was 4.5 billion, of which external was 4.3 billion, and domestic debt was 882 million. If you come to 2010, when Liberia reached HIPIC completion point and our debt was waived, almost 4 billion waived, our total public debt came down to just on around 500.3 million. External debt accounted for 222.8 million. Domestic debt 280. Of this 280, almost 200 plus of that was what we call legacy debt that was on the balance sheet of the Central Bank of Liberia, owed by the government of Liberia. The government was unable and still is unable to clear out this 200 million debt, which is it continues from, it goes as far back as 1980. So it's something that President Salif inherited and was unable to pay out to the central bank, because what happened is that at the central bank of any given country is established by law and by the government to conduct monetary policy. In that same vein, when you give birth to a child, you have to support that child. So meaning the central bank had to be fully capitalized by the government, but government was not in that position to do so. Okay. So as a way of keeping the balance sheet of the central bank safe to some extent, collateralize that debt into a financial asset that the government can pay some level of interest payment on, so that the central bank can have some level of capital to operate. That's why this debt.
When you say collateralize it into a financial instrument, what do you mean? Like,
meaning turn it into a non-financial asset into a financial asset. Meaning give it a financial asset status that you recognize it as a debt owed, and you want to pay interest on that debt, such that the central bank has the ability to sell that debt if the need arises.
You mean the one that was left on the balance sheet?
The legacy, the legacy debt, yes.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
The legacy debt.
Yeah.
So between 2010 and 2017, the total public debt grew from 503.7 million to around 1.1 billion. So an increase of around, let's say, 600 million increase.
Right.
So if you ask the question, so just to answer my brother, the debt increased under President Salif between 2010 and 2017, but the overall picture in terms of where she started in 2006 and ended in 2017, the debt stock reduced from 4.5 billion to 1.1 billion.
Right.
But having reached HIPIC completion point, we started a clean slate of around 503.7 million in 2010. So the question is, can we hold Madam Salif to account on how those monies were spent? So around 600 million. What can we show for it of an increase in our total public debt within 7 years of her administration from 2010 to 2017? Then one can say, do you see the road from Monrovia to Nimba? Yes. Do you see the Mankofe Dam that was damaged? At least, I think 3 of its machine station became alive. You still have to complete, I think, the 4th or so. There's a terminology the experts use, which I can't remember now. But Mankofe is no longer in that same state. So portion of that debt went to the rehabilitation of the Mankofe Dam. Portion of the debt you can clearly see between the road from Monrovia to Buchanan. Under President Weah, when you took over in 2018, you inherited a debt of around 1.1 billion, but when 2018 ended, the debt rose to 1.2 billion. A little amount of 100 plus million increase. However, over the period of this administration between 2018 and 2023, so you see a footnote that says for 5, these are for this year. So let's just say around 5.5 years, because the numbers for 2023, they are still estimates. But the number is saying between 2018, when this administration took over, and now the debt has increased from 1.2 billion to 2.3 billion. 1.1 billion increase. So can we see this post park, but is post park the same as if we had, say, you build a facility bigger than SKD Sports Complex? Then one can say yes. They have done some feeder roads, community roads in Keba area and what have you, which we commend. That's good. All right. But how can that translate into a 1.1 billion increase in the debt? On what? So we should be asking national government to explain. So it's just to make a point on that.
Okay.
So my brother, that's the story around the debt. So I'm not shooting President Salif. I'm just saying the data is speaking for itself. And I'm on record. Okay, see this, Phil, see this. So I'm just saying, let us use our budget now to clean these places. Go to Soniwe. See the Providence Island, see the stench in that place that could be for tourist attraction. But see this. Isn't it where our legislature should be putting money? Empower MCC, empower PCC, empower other local administration structure across the country.
Right. Thank you, Boima. This is good. Let's look at the let's talk about our currency. For a while, the currency was doing quite a few good things, bad things. It depends who you mentioned this to. So what I want to do is I want to bring up a graph.
Yeah.
And this graph pretty much shows at certain points in time where the height, the highs and lows of our currency compared to the US dollar.
Correct.
So between 2019, 2020, it went all the way up to 210.
Correct.
I think it was at that time that we had the issue with how
60 billion issue.
Yes, the 60 billion or 60 million.
16 billion. Liberian issue, all of those concerns.
Right. And then we look at 2021, at a certain point in time, it came all the way down. At the lowest we had was in 2022, 140. And now, in a very short time, everyone has been speaking about the increase over the past 3 months, where it's gone, it's climbed significantly.
All right.
So that's why I just want to open this conversation to say, hey,
what's happening?
What should Liberian people know about our Liberian dollar? I mean, we got some crisp new notes. What's the value?
Correct. So that graph, in terms of actual numbers, so just scanning through the Central Bank of Liberia annual report and quarterly economic bulletins. And for the record, it's just to say this is an institution I work the life of my professional life. I spent with the Central Bank of Liberia. And as I discuss this, I'm purely looking at objectivity. So you clearly see the jump in the rate of depreciation between 2018 and 2019. Currency outside, a currency in circulation, rose from 19.3 billion to 21.1 billion in 1 year. Almost over 2 billion increase in Liberian dollar. So something was just not right, and the number has said it. So that jump is explained for by that Williams.
Okay, so 2019, 2020, we saw a huge increase in the money supply.
Yes.
And that money supply could have attributed to
the rate of depreciation. That's
A lot of money chasing few goods. Okay.
That's correct. So excess Liberian dollar in circulation, and you clearly see the effect of that. And if you just translate that 2 billion, say using an exchange rate, so probably conservatively say put it around 150, you're talking about 13 million US dollar equivalent increase in value. If the economy at the time then of taking over between 2018 and 2019, you clearly see that the rate of growth of the economy in terms of growth, government revenue in terms of generation, if the central bank did not do the counter-cyclical reaction of such increase, meaning you were to mop up excess Liberian dollar. So you at the time then 25 million from the central bank foreign reserve was taken out by the government, and you know all about this mop up exercise. So there's a record that the Financial Intelligence Unit went into investigating how the 25 million was done, and there were issues that it is recorded in that report that there were institutions that non-existed, but the record showed they received money, and when they want to follow up, they did not see those foreign exchange bureau. So that means the intended purpose of the foreign exchange mop-up exercise was not achieved. You still had excess Liberian dollar in circulation. So you clearly see this big jump. So this is more fundamental in terms of how the central bank is conducting monetary policy. And I would say that institution, the independence of the central bank, I will clearly say it has to be respected at all times.
Yeah, I mean,
and there are some things I'm going to highlight.
Yep.
The reason why I say the independence of the central bank is no longer independent. Its independence function was taken in somewhere around 2013 and 14, when the act of the central bank was amended, where the authorization to print must be by the express consent of the legislature. Before this time, it wasn't the case. The central bank was allowed to conduct its monetary policy away from public glare, away from going to seek approval from politicians. There was a situation where it was believed then that the former governor was involving himself in other political activities, and it was like using his position for campaigning. But if you just use an individual and took a decision that punishes the country, ramification far beyond just the individual, these are some of the consequences, because you can imagine where now the central bank is going before the legislature. In a case in point, that I'm going to point as another problem, Gabriel, that we all see. The central bank went before the legislature in 2019, 2020, and sought for an approval to print 48.7 billion Liberian dollar. That approval to print was given on March 19, 2021, of 48.7 billion to replace all notes according to the central bank, the tier money, the mutes. And they were instructed by the legislature to have a 3-year roadmap to make sure all tier money was removed from circulation. So from 2021, 2022, and 2023, that 48.7 billion was sufficient enough to make sure that in all parts of the country, wherever we had these tier money, the bad quality notes, they were removed. But I beg to differ whether the central bank has executed fully this instruction of a roadmap. Because if you look at the stock of currency in circulation, in 2021, between 2021 and 2023, as we speak now, there is an increase in currency in circulation from 23.9 billion in 2020 ending to 25.6 billion in 2023 as we speak. That is the first quarter, according to this bulletin published first quarter of the CBI, meaning an increase of over 4 billion.
So why do you think they weren't successful?
That
Not just the 48 billion, but also the 25 million mop up that they attempted. Why do you think they haven't been successful in doing that? What
and
is your
the reason I would say the first thing is that there is a foreign exchange policy guy at the central bank. That guy says when you're doing mop up exercise, the exercise must be only for registered, licensed foreign exchange bureau operators and the commercial banks. And the way you do it, you would just put the announcement up. All registered foreign exchange bureaus, including businesses who have their accounts at commercial banks, get your Liberian dollar, deposit it in your account at the commercial bank, and the commercial bank will be used as the intermediary. That once you deposit your money at the commercial bank, the record will be reflected in the central bank database, and you pay the person through their account at the commercial bank, not to go on the street.
okay?
And so you're dealing with the bureaus in that manner and form.
So
And that's
here's
why the FIU report found
right.
that there were several names in that report that were non-existent foreign exchange operators that were claimed to have received, but when they go check out for them, they didn't exist.
They never existed. So here's my problem with that, and I think when Alex was on the show, who was actually a deputy at the FIU, we
Correct.
covered this, and here's the problem with that whole. So like
Can you move in a little? Your
yeah,
face is
yeah.
going.
So here's the problem I have with that whole process of how and my biggest problem with Liberia, and I will say this over and over, the reason why we are 176 years old and every president who comes into that office fails miserably is because now one has figured out that in order for me to succeed as a president, the financial infrastructure that we have in this country ought to be built on a good foundation. That's on that foundation, any other policy can be initiated, can take place to be sustainable. Nobody has figured that out. So every time any administration comes, they come out with budget, they have elaborate policy plan, only to realize that they failed, only to realize that they failed, and Liberia continue to be at the stage in which it is. And now one person over 176 years old. Here's my problem with that. We talk about mop up. In the States here, if you have a ripped up money, even a dollar bill that's ripped up, you don't even have to put it together. So long the serial number on this end matches what they want on this end, you take it to a bank, they will give you a brand new bill. What the bank does, they take that rip up money, they collect it at the end of the week, they
Yeah.
send it to the central bank,
Yeah.
the,
And the
the
central bank
central bank
replaces it.
deposit that money into that account.
Correct.
Seamless, ongoing process where we don't have to, in this country, we don't have to put out an announcement to say, hey, we're trying to clean up money. It continues in perpetuity, continue. Like you can have old money, you just go to any bank, you give it to them, they give you a
Correct.
new one. At the end of the week, the bank sends out rip money to the central bank, they deposit the bank's account. The fact that we have not figured that out, and the question that I think I asked
No, Gabriel,
Alex,
there's a policy at the central bank for mute replacement.
right?
It was and since before we left, anybody who has tier money, you come to the central bank window. So there's a window exclusively for mute replacement.
Right.
All right. So probably the central bank needs to do more in terms of information
And
dissemination on that.
right. And this is what I was saying, right? We don't have to, we don't, and that's the problem that I have. This is why we use the Foreign Exchange Bureau and we have names on there that appear that weren't supposed to be there. Foreign Exchange Bureau, they're just supposed to be exactly that, foreign exchange, right? You coming from another country, you bring another country money, we exchange it to Liberian dollar or vice versa.
And
Simple
that's
as
a
that.
point.
You're not
That's
supposed
a
to
point
use it as a financial instrument to
to
replace.
trade, to
That's
transaction.
the fundamental things that we don't get the basic things right. And just the basic, if we just do the basic thing with our financial system, most of this problem will be alleviated. Like
And,
most of them. And we
and
don't
you're
do that.
right. You're
Right.
right. And the point that brings us to is the way our law permits for dual currency. So the dual currency is another problem. that is facilitating the undermining of the stability of the Liberian island. And how is that working? This is the case. Our law says you have the two currencies as legal tender currency. However, one of which you have no control over. It is determined by the Fed. So the supply of US dollar to the Liberian economy is determined by the Federal Reserve and not by the Central Bank of Liberia. That complicates the conduct of monetary policy for the central bank. Because if you ask the central bank today, what is the total level of aggregate money supply, which is called broad money, that is M2?
They don't know
The
that.
central bank will tell you, we can give you the total Liberian dollar in circulation because we have control over that as the Central Bank of Liberia.
Right.
But we don't know the stock of US dollar in circulation because we are not the issuer. You complicate the conduct of monetary policy. Beyond that, what this has also done, our law says transaction in the local economy should be quoted in US dollar.
Why?
And that should not be the case. That's why you walk into the supermarket, you see prices quoted in US dollar and not Liberian dollar. Also, the law says that accounting reporting is in United States dollar. We have to get to the point. It makes it difficult for the financial system, the central bank in terms of its monetary policy, two, in terms of how can the central bank really target monetary growth? We can't.
You cannot. We cannot.
I mean, but yeah, I mean, those are Boima. You definitely bringing up a conversation that we should have another show for.
That's correct.
About our currency and how it's being used. Now,
let me
I'm not sure
just make this last point, and then
let him land, and then we.
So the point I was making there is because of this dual currency and capital repatriation in terms of law, it does not restrict anybody who comes in Liberia. You do business, you can carry your US dollar out. There is no restriction. The risk of that, and a doctor, is this: people come from Sierra Leone, Guinea, and I know they will take the goods from Sierra Leone, Guinea, or Cote d'Ivoire, come to Liberia, sell it, get the Liberian dollar, open a foreign exchange bureau, get the US dollar, and come out. So that is creating another problem. So Liberia is the only country in ECOWAS with a dual currency regime. And my recommendation is we need to change it. All of the other economies around us, they all have their single currency.
I agree with you on that.
We need to change it, and Liberia will not die.
Thank you. Yep.
We will not die when you change it.
I absolutely agree with you on that. I do not understand why we have dual currency in a country that is fragile, that anybody, you can use that currency to destabilize the country if anybody wanted to. Like, because the central bank has no control over the other currency. They only have control over the Liberian currency. So I absolutely agree with you on that. We should have single currency, and hopefully we can move towards that soon.
Thank you.
Well,
yeah. Gabriel, is the line open? Do we have a line open? I see on there, join the conversation. Did Dennis open the line?
Yeah, I think Dennis opened the line. So the line is open for callers. Okay. If you're listening on the conversation, please, we're taking calls. Today we have the former Minister of Finance, Mr. Boima Kamara. We've covered several topics today. We talked about their recent budget report comparing the alien administration to the WEA administration. We also talk about the current recast budget that is actually is online right now as we speak at this Minister of Finance website.
That's their
breach one, right? And we also just briefly talked about the exchange rate in Liberia and its implications. So we're having that conversation right now. So if you'd like to join the conversation, the line is open right now, 605, right on the screen if you're watching us, 605-313-4004.
6004.
6004, yeah. So feel free to join in, or if you have any questions, any comment, any perspective, just call in. The line is open right now. Thank you.
Thank you. So as we wait for that, we're going to look at some of the comments, and as we see here, the rate is steadily climbing now.
Mm-hmm. And especially in election year, you clearly see there is a high risk for increase in the domestic currency. All right, and the central bank has to be, in my mind, play more independent role and don't be seen as bank ruling.
So why
The
do you think they took away? Why would they like sometimes the way we make decisions in our country, sometimes it baffles
Right.
me as if we're like a youth still suffering from the hubris of the an adult still
It
suffering
was
from the
just something
hubris
that
of
was
the
highly
youth, right?
politicized. It was highly politicized,
Right.
Gabriel. We appear like almost 10
Yeah.
different times at that legislature and made a case that when you temper with the independence of the central bank in this manner,
Right.
where you, the politician, on one end at the legislature, you are the one appropriating the budget.
Right.
You cannot also be the one also to tell how money is brought into the economy, meaning you turn in the tap.
Yeah.
It's
That
wrong.
that is definitely true. What's the caller,
Let's take
Mr.
there's a
Caller?
caller on the
We
line.
have a caller. Let's take a caller.
We
Caller,
can't hear him.
we can't hear you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you
Yes,
now.
go ahead.
Hello? You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Just turn off the device you are watching the show on.
Hi, my name is Thomas Kane. I'm calling from North Carolina.
Go ahead,
Can you hear
Thomas.
me?
Yes,
Yes.
we are hearing you, Thomas.
So, yeah, so very good show. You know, thanks to the former minister and thanks to his team that he's working with to be able to look back to the progress that we have made. I think there is one thing that is gradually changing in Liberia, which is good. Because we've really been missing think tanks that can do analytical work to be able to advocate for policy changes. And these things that are growing up now, they are very commendable. The work he's doing, we have Dr. Ibrahim here, he has a research institute on social and economic research. I think these are all things that we do to be able to improve our policy making. But I wanted to go back to the issue of the budget processes that we have in Liberia and how we can actually improve it. I think one thing we need to do in Liberia is to actually transition this budget from line item budgeting, where we just use your help, we give you 74 million, and there is no performance component. I mean, I hear the point the minister is making that we've not been investing in capital expenditure. But even the little that we invest, we don't know what is achieved. So I think we need to transition from line item budgeting to performance budgeting, where we can hold government agencies, ministries, agencies, and commissions to account on the performance side. The other issue is, as we move to investing more into capital expenditure, we also need to build capacity for cost-benefit analysis, expenditure evaluation, so that we don't invest in bad projects, so that every project we invest in should have a return that contributes to economic growth. And then lastly, he kept mentioning this point, the issue of making the budget citizen-focused. The point is that even the PFM law has no provisions in it for citizens' participation. This is why all of the assessments that have been done on the national budget on citizens' participation, we are very poor. I think by 2011, 2012, we're around 30-some more percent, but now we're around 6% or 7%. So the national budget is essentially developing moreover among those national agencies with the legislature, with the citizens making no input, so their priorities don't get into the national budget. So we really need to do a lot of work on the PFM system to reform it, to make it participatory, to make it a system that works for Liberia as a people. And the point is that as we go to election, we don't hear these policy debates coming up. I've not really heard any political party making a case on what they will do in terms of PFM reform. So I just want to say thanks to him. And this is something that has started. We have a lot of think tanks coming up, and I'm very excited that in the coming years we can have very serious policy debate on how to move Liberia forward. Thank you very much.
Brilliant caller. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas Kane. Thank you. We have
another? Do we have
caller.
another?
Hello, caller. Your name and where you calling from?
Yes, sir. Another great show from FOL. I hope you guys are doing well. Nice to be on the line with the former minister. Just got a couple of quick questions. I want to get his opinion, his idea, his feedback on. You talk about the heavily indebted poor countries, right? The HIPC, Liberia subscribed to that program or was added to that program through the IMF.
Yeah,
First of all, do you agree that sovereign debt, borrowing money, sovereign debt helps to grow an economy? Do you agree? So when you subscribe to the HIPC, aren't you essentially saying that you no longer have any ability to borrow money because you are ruining your credit forever now because you kind of filing for bankruptcy? Is that also true?
To make a point, I will comment.
So,
to make a point.
Okay. So what during the time you worked with Ellen and the time you were finance minister did the administration do to rebuild Liberia's sovereign debt credit rating to make it possible to borrow money? Because budget alone, revenues by itself, is not going to grow an economy. I think you would agree with that. So what is it that Ellen's administration did after they got that help from George Soros and his team in 2010 for the debt forgiveness? What did the administration do to reestablish itself with a major debt of the sovereign rating agencies, the Fitch, the Moody's, the Standard & Poor's, and all those guys? What did the administration do? So, because you see what happened when we had tried to borrow money. He went to the whole Eton deal, big company in Singapore. They were scrambling trying to get money. They went to the Boima guy thing. So they have been scrambling trying to borrow money, and because they cannot, they're right now subscribing over to the IMF and to the World Bank in order to get financing. So please, Mr. Finance Minister, can you give us can you let us know what the administration did to rebuild the credit rating? Thank you very much, guys. I'll take the answer offline.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Larry.
All right, thank you.
Your question.
All right, do we have another caller? If not, I think we have two questions on the floor. If you want to take them, that would be great. I can remind you of them what they are if you don't remember.
I fully took note.
You said we have another caller?
Hello?
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, again, it's a great show. Thank you for the information. I've been asking in the chat, where do we access this information? That's my first question. And my second question is, how do we get to this point? Because I understand before the war and under Taylor, lawmakers were making, at least around 1,005. How do we get from that point to, 15,000, 12,000? Is it just Ellen? Because this is a felony in aggravated form. This is complete. Assault on the people with that kind of expenditure. People just, again, terrible. This is so aggravated to just listen to. So how do we get to that from maybe $1,500 to 12,000 and 15,000 lawmakers and ministers with that kind of money? How do we get to that point? So thank you for the opportunity. So how do we, get that information, because I really want to at least have it. And how do we get from 1,500 to 12,000 and 15,000 and stuff like that? Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I think that's probably it, right? We probably had those are the two questions.
Yes, and those are very valid questions, concerns. And to begin with, Brother Thomas Kane, yes, from all indication, and the point in terms of referencing the PFM law, those are all part of the reform that we should stick to make it citizen center, to make it reflect a budget that speaks for the people. So in terms of the issue on capacity building, so the call for increasing capital expenditure will include for human capital development, Brother Kane. So in the health sector, in the education sector, also all agriculture. So across all the critical economic growth sectors, lines, agencies, and ministries. So human capital development will be key, meaning sending our people abroad to specialize in various fields: engineering, agriculture, health, and you just name it. So that will be part of the advocacy for increasing budgetary allocation on capital expenditure. So the core capital expenditure, not only just on the infrastructure, the hard side, roads, bridges, but also on the human presence. Do we have doctors that are specialized into cardiology, that are specialized ENT? The more we have for the rest of the country, what is the ratio of doctor to patient? All right. In Liberia, where you have one doctor catering to maybe 10, 20, or 50 persons, that should not be. So it is all part of the package. And thanks for that point that the PFM law has to be reviewed and let it be people centered. On Brother Kennedy's question regarding after HIPAA completion point, I remember somewhere around 2011, 2012, the then advisor to the office of the president, we started on drafting something around Liberia's credit rating. It started, but again, along the way, it got lost. That process did not continue through. It is valid. It is very important that the credit rating of the country be something that policy leaders, national leaders, we should follow through to the end and let it be done such that it becomes something that we can leverage on for borrowing. Liberia, we need to borrow, but I now, having come with this, having found, you and I, having seen what the data has now shown how we have been spending, the question is, do we even have to go be looking for 300 million loan or 20 million loan or 50 million loan when you can generate 4 billion or 3 billion all by yourself? It has to do with how you are spending even what you have. And that's something. In terms of Derek Poor, Brother Poor, you are right. On the data side, we'll make the data available. It's already available to several persons. So we have the social contract movement. So probably Williams, can you put in my number to contact me on WhatsApp? Anyone who wants to have access to this data, you can just kindly okay, I can type in. Okay, I will type in my number 240-906-0346. So that's my number. It's available to anyone who is interested in having access to the fact sheet, the analysis we've done, the social contract that should be shared across all of your families and relatives. And the intent of the social contract there is for any politician who's coming to you during this election to say, vote for me, and they come in your community. We want all of the community leaders just sit down, look at the social contract, look at how the budget has been spent. And then when the politicians come or anybody who wants legislative seat, come in your community, show them the social contract and let them agree to sign, put their names, because it has two parts. For the officers of the president and the vice president, you got the first sheet, and the second sheet would be for those who vying for legislative seat. The representative and 15 senators, they are up for election. And of late, if you are just follow the recent debate at the legislature just 2 days ago with the Ministry of Public Works, where you see some of the legislators taking road contracts and took money and didn't do the road contract. Double standard. We need the right people. We need the right people to stand up for Liberia. And I'm just calling on all of us in the diaspora, all of us back home. We need to stand up now for our country and be the light in darkness. Yeah. So in terms of how did we get here on the salary side, it started under President Salif. And, you know, every time people send particular law for passage or some agreement has to be signed for an investment, and we found out that this is where the problem started somewhere around 2010, 2011. And there were the salaries and the allocation within the budget towards themselves started to take this big leap, and it started to grow. So today, that's how that elephant has grown so big. But now we are saying the fact that we now see what the evidence research has brought us, they work for us. We don't work for the senators. We don't work for the House of Representatives. The Liberian people employed them through our votes. Therefore, we must demand of them now. All of them. 15 senators will be coming our way to say vote for us. The rest of the members in the House of Representatives, they will be coming our way to say vote for us. We have 9 counts in the social contract that they must sign and affix their names. And if they think we are joking, this social contract movement goes beyond 2023 election. We will follow up with all of you. When you sign, we take a copy, we'll follow you. We'll form a conglomerate within the civil society space to follow through and make sure that our leaders are held to account in the area of governance, in the area of performance, and in the area of accountability. So Liberia's GPA should be 4 points going forward. And may we stand up for our country as they enlighten. May we stand up for the voiceless as they enlighten. May we stand up for the downtrodden as they enlighten. Your space as the media outlets, all of you, Brother Gabriel, Williams, every media entity in Liberia, the print, the electronic, the time has come that we cannot see white and say it is black. The time has come to call a spade a spade. Our nation is bleeding, and we must now rise up to the defense of Liberia's redemption. And God being our help, yes, we can. We can do it.
Perfect. Thank you. I think those were great.
William, you are muted.
Boima, one of the things, Boima, thanks so much. One of the things for the social contract, just if you want to touch base on, I want you to take 1 minute. I know we're going to wrap up, but just take 1 minute and explain maybe why you wrote it the way it is written, so that when individuals open it, they don't think that hey, this guy doesn't know how to
to write English. Okay.
Right.
Okay, just know that we have our brothers and sisters back home. The easier way we can communicate is through our local parlance. So the first section of the social contract fact she explained is in our local way of speaking, just to make sure our mother in the market, when she's being talked to. So let me read it so people can understand. Now, once upon a time, we get 2 villages, the Liberia village and the Prosperity village. The 2 of them get $20 each. The people in the Liberia village use $18 from their $20 to just eat and drink, have party throughout the year, from year to year. The $2 that leeway the people of the Liberia village, they can catch hard time to send their children to school and get books for them, hard time to build Google roads and hospital, buy medicine and equipment for GFK, Jackson F. Doe, Phoebe, and other hospitals and clinics around the country, and can catch hard time to put good money in agriculture to grow their own food to feed themselves. And now, and not to talk about some layover set to sell to other villages outside Liberia. Amen. The leader there in government just spending the money anyhow and not putting first thing first. In the Liberia village, they put enjoyment before work for their citizens. But for the people in the village across the road from the Liberia village, they take $18 from their $20 and put some in fixing good roads, hospital, and clinics, send their children to become good doctors that can take care of you when you get ear, nose, and throat problem, heart problem, ear problem, and plenty other problem people can get when they are sick. They can put some money to train police and army to make their village safe for everybody inside and the other people from outside to do business with no problem. They can put some money to teach young boys and girls to know trade and do some business good and make more work to come for plenty of people. And also make sure that the people that are not in government will put their own money, I want to call it private sector, not government money. They can do all kind of business, and government just make sure the country is okay for them to do their business. So almost all the people in the prosperity village can get jobs to do OSA government and not depend on only government to find job for the people like the people in the Liberia village can do. The people in this village part, they can put first thing first. The both men call it priority setting. And for them, their balance $2. They can take it and enjoy themselves small. Not plenty, like the Liberia village people. You can imagine when the people in the Liberia village get sick and go to JFK, they can't find medicine. And they got to go across the road to Lucky Pharmacy to buy medicine from their own pocket. And some of them will run to the prosperity village to get treatment that JFK and other hospitals they can do when the Liberian people in the village get sick. So this story tells us how Liberia now a transition from the storytelling for understanding of our brothers and sisters, of our mothers in marketplace, our brothers riding the pempe, those who don't have the ability to better understand the technical language. This is the technical side of this paper. So this story tells how Liberia in 12 years, when Madam Salif were in the chair as president, spent 4.3 billion out of 4.8 billion American money that the government collected on salaries, they spend it on goods and services, transfer and subsidies and grants, called recurring expenditure. They only leave with about 455 million to do plenty things. They build good schools and send their children to school, build roads and bridges, fix hospital and train doctors, and get medicine and machines to take care of sick people. Or they get machines and seeds to grow plenty food to feed the Liberia village and maybe sell the balance to people outside Liberia village. The bookman can say the amount given to capital expenditure is not sufficient enough to support public sector investment projects, especially in education, health, agriculture, youth, and women empowerment and rules. So this is just the way that when you take this now to your brothers and sisters in the communities, the first section of this is just to make it in a layman way of understanding the local parlance, and then you can explain the picture. So that's the essence of how we wrote this.
Okay. Well, any more follow-up questions?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. No, just want to let our audience know that the social contract is now on focusonlib.com, which is our website, focusonlib.com. It is available
Thanks so
for
much.
you
Thanks
to
so
download
much
and for
you
you to
all
read.
for allowing us access to your platform. Thanks so much, Williams. Thanks so much, Gabriel. And thanks so much, Brother Ja.
Yeah, you're welcome here anytime. Anytime you want to talk about some of your research you're
It
doing.
is on the first page. You can even do a Google search and
yeah, anytime you're willing.
We might be adding one or two detail line in the social contract. So once we update it, I'll make sure I send it back to Brother Ja.
Yeah.
And also, I want to exchange contact with you guys. So you got my number. So please, I know Gabriel, you sent me something the last time, so I would just have to school and then.
I have your number.
So please just send me a WhatsApp hi. I'm talking to Gabriel and William, not everybody. But I think it's out there. Those any other person who wants to get it personally, that's fine. That's fine.
You put yourself out there. That's I don't know if that was a good idea.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I can take that. Yeah. I'm dealing now with over 700 plus person in the social contract platform. So we can take that.
That's why when you're a public person, you got to know how to screen people, read character.
Correct.
Again, thank you for coming on. As I said earlier, you're more than welcome here anytime. I know you have a think tank. You guys have a research, a paper you want to talk about. Just hey, guys, I have this thing I want to talk about. I want to share it. Let's give me a time, and we'll do that for you.
Thank you.
Again, thank you. I think what you're doing, as I said at the beginning of the show, is very important because in our body of politics as a society, we tend to gravitate towards so much politics, right? That we tend to forget the economics that make up the politics, which
Politics,
is
that's correct.
the most important things.
That's
So this is why we exist on this platform, Focus on Liberia, on the marketplace. Everything we talk about is business, finance, and economics, right? So, which are, for me, I believe these are the meats and bounds of what makes up a society. And I believe everything you do, how long you live, what you eat, who you marry, where you live, everything you do revolves around those three things. So if you're not listening to that, you're not paying attention to that, you're doing yourself a disservice. So this is why we're here. So I'm glad what you're doing. Continue to do that. Anytime you feel you have your research, please do reach out to her. And anytime, even if you want to join us on some Saturdays, feel free to do that.
No, thank you.
We'll be more than willing to have you on here. William, any final comment, or actually, I'll give you the. Do you have any final comment, Mr. Kamara?
So my final comment would just be to say thanks to the Focus on Liberia family. Thanks to Brother Dennis Jar. Thanks to you, Gabriel Carter. Thanks to Mr. William Thomas Bernard King, and all of our Liberians in listening on this call. I want to say thanks for the opportunity we had, just sharing our thoughts. But what is important as a takeaway, please, we are calling on the Ministry of Finance to kindly publish the detail of the recast budget. We just want to look at it and help and provide alternative in terms of reallocation to critical areas that need funding. And on that note, all of you in Radio Land, please, the social contract is out there. Let's begin to hold our national leaders to high standard. The day I put my hand up and say I want to be president of Liberia, hold me to those same standards. Let's hold the legislature to the same standard. Let's hold the executive to high standard. The time has come that if you truly love Liberia, make the sacrifice for Liberia. We'll do our part, but let it be a collective process that everyone, and I call on the government to leverage the diaspora. You have goodwill individual in the diaspora that want to help leverage their expertise. And on that note, I want to thank you all for the time.
Thank you. Will?
Thank you. Once again, thanks for everyone for joining us. This is Focus on Liberia, where we strive to elevate, educate, and promote all things Liberia. And we are very happy to have Boima Kamara here. You can watch this on YouTube, on Facebook later on if you didn't catch it. Share it, please, and so forth. Remember, whether we're talking about the recast, the budget, or whether we're talking about the currency, or whether we're talking about how we spend too much money on resources versus capital stuff, we want you to know that these are discussions that we love to engage in. And I will pass it back to Gabriel so he can take us home.
Yeah, again, thank you. Hopefully you can join us next week, Saturday, same time. And it was a pleasure having Mr. Kamara on here with us. Hopefully all of your questions were answered. If not, we will revisit them next week, hopefully when we rejoin the show next Saturday. Again, it was a pleasure, as we always like to say here, regardless of whether you agree with the topics we talked about, or whether you think we were biased to some one administration or the other. There's one thing that is a common denominator, and it's the fact that we're all Liberian, and that will never change from now to Judgment Day. And so we'll like to leave you with that song that says we're all Liberian. We'll see you here next Saturday at the same time. Adios.
We are Liberian.